And there's no such thing as an easy day. I promise you, there is no such thing as an easy day. And today in this video, we're going to be talking about how to deal with those no easy days. You know, I love it when I'm, on a plane or I'm on a trip and I'm chasing down something and I don't know where the end of this thing's going to go. And I love it when my back's up against the wall, when everybody around me is saying, Matt, we don't think you know what you're doing, and we don't think you do either. I love it when people think that I'm living on a whim and they question what I'm doing. Because if they question what I'm doing, that means I'm probably doing what I think I need to do. And that might sound a little confusing, but let's talk about that for a little bit here. There's no easy day. There's always worries about finances. There's always worries about, projects. There's always worries about, meeting deadlines and commitments and finding the time to do things that we need to do. There's no easy day. No matter who I'm working with, no matter what project I'm working on, there is no such thing as an easy day. But that's okay. Because easy days don't make for great projects. They don't make for a great story. They don't make for a wonderful outcome. You see, we're all going to have problems. And we're all going to encounter equipment failures. We're all going to encounter budget issues. We're all going to encounter some crisis of some thing, shape, form, whatever, throughout our journey. And we just have to learn how to overcome that. So, by overcoming that, we're working our way to perfection. We're working our way through the failures to get to the perfect story. I remember there was a time where I was in Colorado and I was working a story. I was actually working it on my own. I was the producer, the photographer, the reporter, which happens a lot. Sometimes it just happens. And I have my camera gear and I have my tent and everything else out there. And I consider myself to be a pretty good outdoorsman to some extent. I used to be really good at it. I haven't done it in a lot of years, but I consider myself a pretty good outdoorsman. I can pitch a tent. I can sleep in a sleeping bag. I can sleep on the ground. Done it plenty of times in my life, okay? I can eat food from an MRE, a meal ready to eat, right? I can eat those little Vienna sausages out of a can and call it a meal. Let me tell you, I consider myself a pretty good outdoorsman. Well, that was this one time until I was in Colorado. And I was working this story, and I didn't know where this story was going to take me at all. I was just kind of out. I didn't really have a plan for the story. I was just going to be doing a story about taking a hike through Colorado. Sounds like a pretty boring story, doesn't it? Well, until that story becomes interesting. Okay? I ended up being kind of lost in the woods for about, I think it was like 3 days. I was lost on this trail. And I knew something was up after about a day and I didn't see anybody else. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to take this trail and I'm going to follow this trail. And I did everything wrong. Okay? There was no marked trail saying this is a trail. Okay? All this was stupid. I had a momentary lapse of stupid. What I thought was a hiking trail turned out to be a game trail. And that game trail, as it went further and further into the woods, kept branching off. And I just kept taking branches and branches and branches and branches until ultimately I got so far into this woods that I couldn't remember how to get my damn self out. Well, there was this moment of panic that I kind of stopped and said, oh my God, I'm going to become dinner for bears and wolves and all this crap. And I just said, okay, we got to figure this out. So I realized that I had to stop and pitch my tent, take inventory, and I wasn't going to work my way out of there at night. I had to see what I had. Well, I realized that I had a compass. I realized that I had plenty of food. I had plenty of water. I just had to make do with what I had to do. So I pitched my tent, made some fire, did what I had to do, right? I said, okay, I'll figure my way out of this in the morning. I'll backtrack my way out of it. Probably the wrong way of thinking. Well, as I was doing this, I was taking photos of my camp, taking photos of my backpack, taking photos of, the situation around me and everything else. And ultimately I got back, turned out fine. I was able to, after 3 days, I was able to work my way out of this thing. And somebody said, well, what'd you do out in Colorado? What'd you do while you were, out in the middle of Colorado on vacation doing this story? I said, well, I got lost in the woods. And somebody said, well, oh, really? And I said, yeah. So I was telling them this story. They said, oh, man, it'd be a great story. Fat guy lost in the woods. Well, it turned out to be a no easy day for me. Turned out to be a pretty profitable day. Because a certain magazine that focused on outdoor life bought my story. And they bought my photos. And my little vacation ended up paying me about $10,000. Me getting lost in the woods, no easy day, turned out to be a pretty profitable day. So you see, it's not always bad when you encounter no easy day. It might just be bad at first sight. It's all in perspective. It's all in what you do to it. You see, overcoming these hard days and overcoming these hard projects is what makes us unique. It's what makes us stand out. It's what makes us good at what we do. We have to overcome the hardest days in order to achieve something. I'm Matt. Be sure to subscribe and face the hard days head on. Because you never know when they're going to come in handy. You just never know.